The Sikha we will be learning today will be from the Sikha Chelik Zayin, Sikha Aleph. The Pasuk where it says that Pari took 600 chosen chariots and was chasing the Yidden when the Yidden were standing by Yamsuf. Sagen Chazal in Mechilte, the Chazal say in the Mechilte, as the behemoths was Pari had genutzt for the Sheish Meis Rechav, the animals that Pari used for these 600 chariots, seine Gewinn von the Mikne Shehenis Hayoritz var Hashem, was from the cattle, that the ones that were afraid of Hashem's words, put them in. It says by the Borod that anything that was left outside, animals or people, would die. So the ones that were afraid of Hashem's words took him in, and the same thing happened by Dever. So the animals that he used here to chase the Yidden were the animals from the cattle of those people who hid them, who took him inside, because they were Yored Var Hashem. And the Mechilte adds, from here, Reb Shimon learned, said, the best of the goyim you should kill, the best of the snakes you should break his mayach, you should squash his mayach, his brain. See, you do the kasha was reflect of the Maimed. There's a famous question that's asked on this Maimed Chazal. Hey, Tochen to sagen, how can we say as a Torah or Paskinen, the Torah should say, I feel like we should kill even a good guy? So it's against righteousness and against tzedek. How could you do that? On this kasha, many answers were given. Was einige von sie wollen da weiter demont werden. Some of them, the Rebbe says, I will mention soon here in the Sikha. Especially in the dialogues that Gedele Yisrael had with Seine Yisrael, with Jew haters, the Meshach of the generations. And he gives examples. The dialogues that Rabbi Chil Paris had, who he was from the Gedele Balei Atosos, from the big Balei Atosos. These days, they say, even the last generations, they used this thing against the Yidden when they had these dialogues. So the kasha is, how could you say just a good guy, you should kill him? Even Rashi, in the simple shot, the way he explains in Posik, and this Posik, is Maitik Deverte B'charechem Mitzrayim. Rashi quotes from the Posik the words, all chariots of Mitzrayim, when he's Mefarish v'y Mechilte, and he explains like it says in the Mechilte. He asks the question, where did these animals come from? If you're going to say they came from the Egyptians, it says that all the cattle of Mitzrayim died. If you're going to say it came from the Eden, it says the Gam that Moshe Rabbeinu said to Pari, even our cattle is going to go with us. So from whom were they? Where did they have them from? From those that were afraid of Hashem's words, and they took their animals inside, so they survived. And those are the ones that Pari used here. The Kanoy Reb Shimon from here, Reb Shimon said, Kosher Sheba Mitzrayim. Kosher means a good one, a good from the Mitzrayim. You should kill. Teib Sheba Nechoshem, and the same thing. The best snake, let's say it says Meichei. You should break his brain. So here Rashi we also don't understand. Chotz Pirish Rashi is gemeint und es darf zum Ankommen a viele Godels Yisrael. Even though Rashi is made for every person, even for the greatest people, and they also have to come on to Rashi. Because as far as the Psak Din b'negei shnai mikevech Targum, that's why there's a din that when you're Ma'aver the Sedre every week and you say twice the Posik in Chumash and once in Targum, so the din is as Yerushalayim Yikra Targum v'gam Pirish Rashi. Yerushalayim should read the Targum and also Rashi. So Rashi is made even for the greatest people, for everybody. He's the Geret Filmo, but nevertheless, the Rebbe, I said many times, Pirish Rashi of Chumash is the Geret Filmo, Pirish Rashi of Chumash zugepasst auf verstandig eich v'ara min Chumash u'mikra. The Pirish Rashi is made to be understood, and it fits even to a 5-year-old child, because it says in Pirkei Avos, a 5-year-old child starts learning Chumash. So Rashi tells the 5-year-old child the pshat in the Chumash. When you're neifen, as a verstehen pshuter the mikra la mitose, and in such a way that to understand the simple pshat truthfully, darfen nicht onkommen zu noch meforshim und so weiter. You don't have to come on to other meforshim. Rashi gibt ihm als bepashtus pirushe, lechos dober v'leyitur. Whatever that is negated to the simple pshat, Rashi gives him. Rashi doesn't miss anything to explain and doesn't say anything extra. And Rashi does it al asar. On the posik, Rashi makes it clear that whatever is needed in Pshuto Shel Mikra to understand from the words that Rashi says, other in the Pirush Rashi was already learned fear, or you'll understand it by something that Rashi already said before. But not that Rashi wrote it in a way that you still don't understand the pshat, and you have to come on before him to explain what Rashi meant. Based on that, is an since the question we asked before is a very simple one. As he which is something that even a 5-year-old will think of. So wie bringt Rashi Rob the Maimon for Reb Shimon Kosher Shimon Mitzrayim Areg? So how does Rashi bring the saying of Reb Shimon that the best of the Mitzrayim you should kill, need zugeben dig thereby can shum beer and not adding any explanation of the kasha we had, which any child will ask. And as we said, Rashi writes his Pirush that it'll be understood. It seems like it's not understood here. Rashi writes something that's not understood, and Rashi doesn't answer it. No, it's even harder. A child that learns Chumash already learned before, and as we said, the child that learns Chumash doesn't know anything that he's going to learn further later. But whatever he learned before in Chumash or Rashi, he remembers. So he remembers what he learned as when Avram Avinu is given in Mitzrayim. And Avram was in Mitzrayim, hat Pari meite given zu Avram. Und ihm weggeschickt von dort mit der Kavane zu verhitten ihm und Sorge für schlecht. The Pari was good to Avram, and he sent him away from Mitzrayim because he wanted to protect him and Sorge from any harm that the Mitzrayim could do. So we see that there is Mitzrayim which are good. Noch mehr davon hat gelernt. The child or anybody who learns Chumash learned even more. When the children came to settle in Mitzrayim, hat Pare allein mit seinem eigenen Willen vorgelegt zu besetzen sie mit der Worte. Pare on his own will offered that they should settle in the best of the land, which is in Goshen. These as they besetzen sich is given in a Eifen with the Posek that zählt, and the settling was in such a way as the Posek says, they settled there and they multiplied there. In other words, it was good, and Pari did something very good. So Pari is a Mitzri and he was a good person. How could you say that the best of the Mitzrayim you should kill, because me gefind, as es einen gewinn als solche Mitzrayim, was haben sich was zeigen zu ihnen, wie es darf zu sein. Since we find that there were Mitzrayim that behaved to the Yidden the way it's supposed to be. They lived to them in peace. Not only did they live to them in peace, it didn't harm them. They were good to them. So we see not every Mitzri is bad. And here it says that the best Mitzri you have to kill. By this child who's learning Chumash, the kasha will get even greater when we get to Parsha Kiseitze. Now, the Rebbe doesn't mean that Rashi here has to answer a question that will come up from Parsha Kiseitze, because as the klal is, Rashi only answers things in this posik. If there's a problem in this posik and a later posik, he will explain in the later posik. But Lepel, the Rebbe says that when you will get to Parsha Kiseitze, there will be a kasha. Was kumtzu atzivim afurish, there the Torah makes a very clear tzivut. Leis esayev mitzri. It was, don't start up with a mitzri. Don't be nasty to a mitzri. As is an isur, so nor afil messiah is an mitzri. It's an isur, not only have to hurt him, even to metayev him. But now Avadi needs to argue in him, and certainly not to kill him. So how could the posuk here say that, where Rashi explains, that the best mitzri you have to kill? V'ed also, if the best mitzri you have to kill, so how could we mekayim, how could we fulfill, after the posuk speaks that about not bothering a mitzri, the posuk continues, a third generation could come into in marrying a Jewish woman. In other words, if a mitzri is megayer, so he cannot marry a Jewish woman. He could only marry another mitzri that's megayer. Then the next generation too. The third generation already could marry into the regular Jewish nation. So here it says that you could. The truth is, if it's a ger of a Mitzrayim that comes to convert, shows that he's a good Mitzri. Reb Shimon says even the best Mitzri you have to kill. So how could you fulfill the sin of having him a third generation when the first Mitzri comes to marry? He shouldn't let him. It says here the best Mitzri you have to kill. So they'll never get to the third generation. So that's a contradiction from this posik to that posik there. And since there's a contradiction, Rashi at least should have answered it in Parsha Kisoitze. So the Rebbe continues. Einer von den Terutzim, was man gefunden in Asach Sforim, is one of the answers brought in many Sforim. It's like this. Mesichta Seifrim is the Girse. Mesichta Seifrim says the same thing, but there are different Girse. There it says, Hatev Sheba'akum B'shas Milchama Hareg. The best guy during the war, you shall kill him. Which means, Ados as Mameg or the Medar Paragid and Afil Hatev Sheba'akum. This is that you're able to, or maybe it even means you should kill the best guy. He does it's only said when he is at war with the Eden. But not in any other situation. For nit when there's no war, certainly it's not only not war, but it's a peaceful time. That's not what it meant. So there the gears is that it's referring to the time of war. So maybe that's what we can learn Pshat in Rashi. And meint nor b'shas Mitzrayim kumt milchama halt mit Eden. When he said the best Mitzri you have to kill, that's only when the Mitzrayim are at war with the Eden. From das was the Yoreh Dvar Hashem is demelt nanish geworden, because at this point, the one that gave the cattle, the behemoths to fight, to chase after the Eden, was punished. Is es vorgekommen, wenn die Mitzrayim haben noch gejagt die Eden, milchama zu halten mit sie beim Yamsuf. That it was a time when Mitzrayim were fighting with the Eden. In other words, what Asher says, the best Mitzri you have to kill. And what was he referring to? Here we see that the best Mitzri, the good ones, gave their cattle to chase the Eden. It was a wartime. They were trying to make wage war with Eden. So that's what Rashi says, that at the time of war, just like over there by this case, at the time of war, the best Mitzri was bad and he deserved to die. So anytime when the Mitzrayim the Goyim are at war with Eden, then even the good ones you have to kill. So maybe that's what Rashi means. So the kasha is not so bad. It's not just killing any Mitzri. Rashi is pshat. In pshat, in that derech pshat, you can't learn that's what Rashi means. While Rashi says like this, Mikan hoyer Reb Shimon neimer kosher Mitzrayim hareg. From here, from this case of these people who were Yored Dvar Hashem, that they also died by Kriyas Yamsuf. From here we know, Reb Shimon said, that the good Mitzri you should also kill, which means, number one, as von dannen lernt man if anders. From here we learn out someplace else. So it's not only the gay here at the time the way it's here. We learn that from someplace else. And mikan from them by Yikach gay merecha Mitzrayim. And what Rashi says is, from here, from this case where they took the chariot of Mitzrayim, from their pasirung, from them nemen. Here, they took the chariots from these good Mitzrayim, so to speak. Wie bald, als der Yoreh ist Dvar Hashem von den Mitzrayim, hat gegeben seine Behemoth zu Parei. From here it mashma, that since the Yoreh Dvar Hashem from the Egyptian gave the Behemoth to Parei, is so lieb dem is wert given dem Einish, but the Rebbe hat ihm gebracht, b'shas Kriyas Yamsuf hareg. Because he gave the animals, that's why he would deserve to die, like it happened at Kriyas Yamsuf, that all these people died. So what did they die for? For giving their behemoths to Parei to chase the Eden. Das heißt, it means, the fact that these people deserve to die is not because they actually waged war against the Eden. Only because he gave this to the behemoths to Parei with this bad intentions. Before the war, before they went into Milchama. When they took it, they were still in Mitzrayim. They weren't fighting with the Eden. And from Rashi is mashmer that from here we see that the best Mitzri you have to kill. From what here? From here that these good, so to speak, Mitzrayim gave their cattle to Parei to be able to chase the Eden. And for that they deserve to die. And from there we learn out other places the same. So it comes out that it's not because of the war. If the reason we'd say they died is because they went to fight. So we see even a good Mitzri during the war is no good and you got to kill them. But here it wasn't because they went to war. So obviously it's not because of the war. So we're just saying any good Mitzri you have to kill. And the question comes back, what does that pshat? Any good Mitzri you have to kill? And you can't say Rashi means like the Sichta Seifrim. It means because he's in the middle of war, because they weren't in war. What they did, what they deserved to die was not because of the war. Then Rebbe goes weiter. Rebbe said maybe we could say that the fact they gave the cattle, the behemoths to Parei, is also considered as part of the war. You could say that because this was given in order to fight, so this is considered that they're also part of the war. From For another reason, for a stronger reason, the main reason why we can't say Rasha means that you should only kill a Mitzri, B'shas, even a good Mitzri, B'shas is at war. For a different reason, we can't say that's what Rasha means. Because as we said before, Rasha geschrieben sein Pirish Echvar Ben Chomesh. Rasha wrote this Pirish even for a 5-year-old child. Und der Rebbe is canal, therefore, as we said before, alles was is nötig gibt Pshuta Shlomikra, hat Rasha geschrieben, Poshet und Klor. Everything that's negated to the Pshat, Rasha wrote it very clear. Therefore, if Rasha would mean that when he says the best mitzvah he should kill, means at the only time of war, he would have said it very clearly in his commentary. He wouldn't rely that the child who's learning doesn't understand, will search and find it in the Masechta Sofrim, another girsa, and say, oh, this is probably what Rasha meant. Rasha doesn't do that. So if Rasha would mean that, he would write clearly, Teiv Shebe Mitzrayim, or Shebe Mitzrayim, B'shas Mochama, he would put in these words. Especially, it's not just in order to understand the Pshat. It's a real condition. According to this Pshat, it's only then that you do it. So Rasha would have made it clear. So therefore, we can't learn like this. So now the Rebbe continues, high time, since we just said that whatever Rasha meant has to be very clear. So because of that, is eich schwer einzulernen die andere Terutzim, was werden gebracht in Svarim. It's hard to say the other answers that Svarim say, and as the Rebbe will give a list of a few answers, a few examples, that you can't say that's what Rasha meant, because if Rasha would mean those answers, those shotim, he would have said it clearly. L'moshel, Rebbe says. L'dugma, for instance, number one answer is, as the Pirush for Reb Shimon's Klal meant, that the meaning of Reb Shimon's rule, that you have to kill the best of the Mitzrim, means niet as the kosher Mitzrayim is wert dem Einish von Hareg. It doesn't mean that the best of Mitzrayim, of the Mitzrayim, deserves to die. Hareg means kill him. Nor afile a kosher Mitzrayim is asa v'zokt Hareg. That's the Lashon. Teiv Shebe Mitzrayim, the best Mitzri, Hareg, not that you kill him, will always say kill, which means B'shas handelt sich wegen Mishpat Nachete, was is verdächtigt in the Tziche, when you're judging a sinner who you suspect that maybe he murdered somebody, but you don't know. Is der kosher Mitzrayim greitum zu vermishpeten zum Teit Hareg, even the best God, the best of the Mitzrim, is ready to judge him that he deserves to die, just on an assumption, without the proper investigation to find maybe merits that he doesn't deserve to die. Every God, the best one, will always say, if it's a question whether he deserves to die, yes, he should die. Shenke by Yidden is the Seder, by Yidden the opposite. Seder is V'shoftei again V'tzilei, by Yidden that says in Pasuk that when the Bezdin judges, they have to look for reasons to kill him, but they have to at the same time find reasons not to kill him. As es fordert sich Eidim und Hasra v'chulu, first you have to have witnesses, proper witnesses, you have to have warned him before, you have to find merits that he doesn't deserve to die. And that's what this pshat says, is the pshat in the words, Teiv Shebe Mitzrayim, says Hareg always. That's one pshat. Another pshat, that when it says the best mitzvah you have to kill is only an exaggeration, which is al derech with their Pirush and Hemshech from Reb Shimon's Maimed. It's all similar to what Reb Shimon continues his statement. There is Masechta Sofrim. He continues. He says like this. He says a few things. He said the best mitzvah you should kill. The best woman does black magic. What does he mean with that? Chas v'sholom to sagen if a bas Sora Rivka Rochav Aleya, certain chas v'sholom to say on the Jewish woman, the daughter of Sora Rivka Rochav Aleya. Unoch hakshera shebehem. We're talking about the good ones of them. As is abalas kshofim, she's a magician. So what did he mean? He said it as an exaggeration. To madgish sein, to stress a wiffel medarfim dem sein geworden, afilu b'shaychas shekseire shebenoshim. How careful you have to be, even when it comes to the best woman. You always got to be very careful to see that she's not like that. So really, it didn't mean the best woman is about kshofim, but it's an exaggeration to show you how careful you have to be. Now so the same thing by kosher sheba Mitzrayim hareg. According to this shah, this is what he meant when he said the best mitzvah you should kill. It doesn't mean you have to kill him. It's an exaggeration and a strong stress. How much you cannot rely on anybody, on any of the guns. The second shot. Third shot, Gimel. In der Zeit von Reb Shimon haben Jiden gelitten, als Sachzoras gesehen zum Sehen in Israel. Time Reb Shimon Jiden suffered a lot of Zoras, a lot of decrease from the Jewish enemies. Und sie hat Reb Shimon gemeint mit seinem Maim Mekoshesh über Mitzrayim Hareg. And those people in his time, he meant when he said the best one of Mitzrayim killed. Also er Maruz gewesen, a offene Sinne zu Jiden, they showed an open hatred to the Jiden. Bedugmet wie Anochash, was wird der Mann gleich noch dem, similar to the snake, we said next to this says, the best snake you should kill was his full mit gift. Why should you kill him? Because the snake always naturally has poison and he has venom against that person. So too, the Goyim at the time of Reb Shimon were so bad with their hatred to the Eden. So that's what he meant. Oh, but it meant Goyim Bechlal, it doesn't mean generally Goyim. Now, it doesn't even mean Egyptians. Best proof is, we find many Mamorach Chazal where it stresses how the Eibishter had pity on the Egyptians. Und noch mehr das Beilet in dem Tam of Tzibul Isai Mitzrik Geri Isabalze. You see it especially in the reason why it says you shouldn't bother Mitzri, shouldn't start up with him. And the Pasuk gives a reason, because you were a ger in his land. In other words, you lived in his land, so you got to give him some respect. So we see that the Torah does speak about the goodness of the Mitzrayim. So Reb Shimon never meant that all the Mitzrayim are like that. He meant just in his time, he was talking about these people. So we have three reasons, three answers given to the kasha we had before. So the Rebbe says, Odi pirush v'kolka yetzeben is schwer einteichen in Pirush Rasha. These answers you can't put it into Rasha's words. But the bald they liegen nicht in Pashas am Shmoyes from the Werte was Rasha bringt kosher sheba mitzrayim areg. Since these words, this pshotim, all these three pshotim, and you are not simple in the using the words of Rasha, which he says doesn't say any, doesn't say in the time of Reb Shimon, it doesn't say that what he says kill, or the other pshotim. So how could you put these words? But if Rasha would mean that, but Rasha gedarf zulegen Werte zum Avayre sein der main von kosher sheba mitzrayim areg. If he would mean any of these three pirushim, he would have to add kosher sheba mitzrayim areg and explain what it means, because if he doesn't explain what it means, a person who's just learning the Rasha without knowing anything else would never look into see in Rasha these three pshotim. Hey, says Rasha tut es nicht, nor is meitig, nor the gezählte Werte von Reb Shimon, die sie stehen in Mechilte. Since Rasha does not do that, there's not anything else, it just copies the words of Reb Shimon as they are written in the Mechilte. Muslim Onemen, we have to say, der Bier von dem liegt in Reb Shimon's Werte Gufe. We must say that the answer to Rasha's question, to the question on Rasha, is in Rasha's word itself. As Rasha darf gar nicht zugeben, zu verantworten, der Kasha, afilu nicht zu Bab Mechomesh. Rasha doesn't have to add anything to answer the Shaila, even to a child of 5 years old. Now we have to know what it is. But before we get to the answer, so the Rebbe continues, von dem allem kommt man zu der größere Tmi in the Minyan. Based on what we said before, we come to a bigger Kasha. Let's say we'll answer Shati Rasha from all sides. Everything will be fine. We will explain that how it's understood. A child learns, 5-year-old child learns, and Rasha says the words kosher sheba mitzrayim areg, he will understand. He has no problem. Whatever will explain that this is what Rasha said. That kosher leader, now we have the kasha on the opposite side. Wie kommt es aber Meshach Deires vom Gdele Yisrael sich gemattet zu verantworten die kasha? Why is it the Gdele Yisrael had a hard time to answer the kasha of the Goyim when they quoted this, und haben sich nicht begnügen mit der Aufklärung, was Rashi hat für Ben Chomesh. Why wasn't it enough? Whatever we're going to explain in Rashi, that's so simple, as we said, why didn't they answer that to the Goyim? If it's such a simple answer. Warum es ist sicher, it's clear, da wird nicht gemeint zu verantworten die Scheile von Ben Chomesh mit der Hezbollah die Asagose. It's not the pshat that when we're going to explain pshat in Rashi, means we're going to explain pshat that the child will accept. According to them, the child will accept. But is aber nicht der emes beer, which really is not the real reason. The real reason we'll find later the child when he'll get older. But what we're saying, Pshat in Rasha, explaining that Rasha's words contain it, that the child will understand, is according to him. And if we say that way, then the kasha that we ask why the Gdele Yisrael didn't say it, because this is only a childish answer. The Pshat we're going to say that's a childish answer, but that's not true. The Rebbe says, Chash v'sholem zu sagen, as Rasha learned in the Mechomesh, that the Rasha is teaching this to a child, and it's not according to the truth. It's a childish and not a real answer, and that's why they couldn't say it. Nor gewiss is the Rasha usen and Tamobir Amiti really Rasha means the real reason. And it's so simple, and that's the real reason that the Rasha doesn't have to add anything to what the Mechilta. It says, even for the child, now, which is such a true teretz. It's a simple teretz, and it's a true teretz that even the child understands. So it must be a real teretz, so why didn't they answer? In all these dialogues, they did not answer whatever the Rebbe would say we're going to explain. So that's a pelle. If the explanation, such a good explanation that there is, why didn't they give them an explanation? We also have to understand another thing. Number one, Peter Rashi is not safer to Paskin Allah. Rashi's commentary on Chumash is not a safer to Paskin Dinim. Now he's explaining Pshat in the Psukim. To was is bechal negeye in Pirik Shaksuvim. So in order to understand the Pshat and the Posik, why is it important? So to bring down that from here we see came what Reb Shimon said that the best mitzvah you should kill. If Sefarent from the Kashe, in order to answer the Kashe, where they got the Behemoth, is doch genug zu sagen, as sie seinen gewählt Majores war Hashem. Und nicht mehr. All Rashi had to say, Rashi has the Kashe, where did they get the Behemoth? So Rashi could have said from those people who feared Hashem's words, and what did they do? They put their behemoths inside, so the behemoths survived. That's all. Why does Rashi have to add to that? And from here, Reb Shimon learns out that you have to kill the best mitzvah. So if Rashi would be a safer teaching us halachas or things like that, so yeah, Rashi tells us what you got to do. But Rashi is not there. Rashi is just Pshat and Posek. For Pshat and the Posek, Rashi didn't have to say it. And as we said before, Rashi doesn't say anything extra. So why does Rashi say this? Number two, Eba fil Rashi darf das Vavorenen, as if the Yored var Hashem, but need to take. Now, if Rashi has to say it, in order to answer, Rashi says that the one that feared Hashem's words also was no good. So in order to explain that, Rashi maybe has to say this, that Reb Shimon said, maybe in order to answer the question, wie kommt Ayore war Hashem, wie kommt Ayore war Hashem, geben seine Behemoth zu führen, mit ihnen. Because the Rashi would just say the words. Where did the Behemoth come from? From the Yored var Hashem. But l'chura, that's not enough. A child or anybody who learns this says, I don't understand. If it's Yored var Hashem, it's not Shayach. How did he give it? Maybe that's the reason why Rashi says that Shimon learned out from here that the best mitzvah he could kill. That answered the question. Yes, how could the Yored var Hashem of the Mitzrayim give the Behemoth to fight with the Eden? Exactly, because the best is also bad. The best ones are bad. So maybe that's why Rashi brings it. So the Rebbe is aber noch als nicht, it's still not simple. Was ist negeye der Ausführ, als ist verdem ähnlich von Hareg? Why do we need to say that the best mitzvah you have to kill? Rashi should have said, from here we see that the best mitzvah is bad. In order to answer the question why they gave, because they're also bad. They look bad, they're better than others, but they're still bad. That's what they gave. Why is it important to mention that you got to kill them? Another question, Gimel. The hemshech we see him, Tevshib and Choshim, the hemshech in the end, that the best of the snakes, he should bash his brain out or whatever we'll say, certainly has no connection to our posik. And again, Rashi only writes things, not more and not less, what's negated to the pshat and the posik. Why does he bring this? And the fourth question, why do we need to learn from here that the best snake, you have to bash his brains? It's a clear posik. Posik in Bereshis. David said, I will make a hatred between the human and the snake. And the posik, the human is going to hit the snake on the head. He's going to bite the human on the feet. So the posik says, that the man breaks the head of the snake. So why do we need from here to learn now that the best snake, you have to bash his head in, his brain? So these are kashas on the Teichon of the Rashi. Not such a big piece of Rashi, but so many kashas. There are more questions. Diyukim. Some are called questions, and some are diyukim. A diyukim, a word. Number one. So the welchen tam bringt der Rashi the nomen from Bala Memre Reb Shimon. Why does Rashi bring who said this statement? Reb Shimon. Von Rikiret kam upon him. The Montes Rashi nor down when das is massive beer in sein Pirish. Rashi only brings a name that adds explanation in the Pirish that Rashi brings. Because if Rashi would just bring it because you should bring whatever you say, B'Shem Meremer, you should bring it the name of who said it, then a lot of what Rashi writes was said by different people in Gemara, in the Midrashim, etc. Rashi doesn't bring, in most cases, Rashi doesn't bring a name. So those places where he does bring the name, obviously it's negated to the pshat. So what's negated here? To know that this was Reb Shimon. Basis, another kasha. By Kosher Mitzrayim zokte dem Loshen Hareig, and by Tev Shebenechoshim retzeites Meiche. By the best Mitzri, he says kill. Best Mitzri should kill. And by the best snake, he says retzeites Meiche, bash his brain in. Why didn't he say kill him? And that's it. A third question, Gimel, by the Loshen retzeites of Rashi L'chure gedav zogen retzeites Reishe. When he says retzeites, which break, bash his head, not his brain. Why? By Hesem to Loshen HaKosa, which then it would fit to the Pasuk. The Pasuk says, Hu Yeshuvcha Reish. So we see that when it comes to Yeshuvcha, which means to break, it says by the snake Reish. Another Pasuk, it says Ratzatzto, Roshe Levios. It says Ratzatzto, the same Loshen is here, and it says Roshe. So why does he change Dasha from the Pasuk and it says Meiche, his brain? And the fourth kasha, what is the diik Mekanoi Reb Shimon Nemer? What is the diik that from here Reb Shimon knows this din? The thing that the best mitzri you should kill. Was kommt zu Sheila sein, I kann es nicht ablernen, not afke mekan. What's Rashi trying to exclude? When Rashi says from here we know, it's because there would be a possibility to know it from someplace else. So Rashi says no, from here we know. How would we know this from someplace else? Or not how do we know, maybe from the Pasuk. But what does Rashi mean when Rashi says mikan and not from someplace else? What is he trying to tell us? That here we see something that we wouldn't see someplace else. Where is that someplace else that Rashi is trying to tell us? In order to answer this, all this, you have to first bring a general shaila that you could ask on what Rashi says. Looking back, when we quoted before Masechta Sofrim, where it says the best guy during war you should kill, that makes sense. It makes sense even a simple pshat. Since the guy, the Mitzrayim at this point, came to fight, have a war with Yidden, und nicht das, was der Eibishter hat meinisch gewinnt, die Mitzrayim ist gewinnen an Eifen. For Milchame, side the Mitzrayim went to Milchame, and the Eibishter, what he did to them, he punished them, was also in the form of a war. But the Pasuk says, Hashem yilochem lochem. Hashem will fight, lochem is lochem Milchame, will fight for you. And it says, Hashem nilchem lahem, they said, the Mitzrayim said Hashem is fighting for them. So it comes out that this was during war. Oh, in that case, versteht ich ben Chomesh, also mit vierter Milchame, mit Asene, kämen die Twister die Gscheren von dem Tzatschike Neged, b'shas der Milchame Gufe. Even the child understands. When you're at war with your enemy, you can't check and see, well, this is the better guys of the enemy, this is the worst guys, and you can't make a difference. So it makes a lot of sense. So Rashi could have said it here, that since this was a time of war, and the good ones were also bad, so from here we know that when the time of war, the best guy is still no good. You can't trust the best guy. And that would be a simple pshat. Why Taka doesn't Rashi say it? Is the other beglatte from the gifts of us Rashi brings from the Mechilte. This would be simpler than the way Rashi brings it for the Mechilte, where state stam kosher mitzrayim areg. There it's a stam, a good mitzri you should kill. That's the way Rashi brings for the Mechilte. Had he brought it from Masechta Sofrim, would be much simpler. Because the way Rashi brings it was number one, das meint zu jeder Zeit am all Umständen. The way Rashi writes it, it means always under all circumstances. But das ist lagamra hepech tzedek v'yeshin. That is hard to understand. That's against tzedek and yeshin, against righteous. How could you just say any time, any guy you should kill? And that's why it's mashron for Rashi. The second thing, das ist madgish, as dem Yored dvar Hashem, but gekommt mise blaze der fire, was gegeben seine Behemoth zu Parik now. Because the way Rashi writes it, doesn't the word b'shas Mochamed, so it's mashma that why did the people here, the one that gave the animals, the Yorei Dvar Hashem, why did they get killed? Nothing to do with war. Rashi doesn't mention the word war, not because of the war, because they gave their animals, and that's harder to understand. Had Rashi written the way it says in Sichta Seifrim, would have been simpler. Rashi would have said, just like here, they were fighting a war, so the best ones of the war. During the war, the best guy, the best Mitzri deserves to die. And so you see here that these guys who went against the Yidden, they went to war, they all died. So we see from here, the Rashi doesn't do that. The Rebbe says, no, in the Memes in this concussion, really, this is not a kasha. Why? In der Chabshat ist verstandig, als der Ness von Kriyas Yamsuf und Vertillungen von du noch Joge de Mitzrayim. In Derech Havshat, we understand that the miracle of Kriyas Yamsuf and the fact that the Mitzrayim who chased the Yidden got killed is nicht blaze machmas dem, was the Mitzrayim haben noch gejogt die Yidden mit Zimmer Choma gehalten. It's not only because of what they did now, that they were chasing the Yidden and they went to war with the Yidden. Where man steht in Frier and Posik, you can't say it's for that reason only, because the Posik says, "Ad der Eibishter hat gesagt, Meishen v'chazakti es leif pare berodaf." I, the Eibishter's I, will strengthen, harden the heart of Pare, he'll chase. So you can't really say for this itself, Pare and his people were killed. Later it says in Posik, Hashem es leif Pare, v'yirdei. Hashem hardened, strengthened the heart of Pare, so he chased. We bald es noch jognis, you come in der Farbe, der Eibishter hat gestarkt Pare's heart, and since chasing the Eden came because the Eibishter strengthened his heart, kommt doch nicht kanenisch der Far, so you can't really punish him because of that. So why did Eibishter kill them all now here by Kriyas Yamsuf? No, she's given a hemshech von die alle friedliche Makkes, that the Eibishter gebracht hat in Mitzrayim. This was all a continuation of the previous Makkes that the Eibishter brought on the Mitzrayim. So the them was the Eden gepeinlich und Shabbat given a meshach azefel yon. They made the Eden suffer and they made them work hard for so many years. And now it's Abschluss for the alle Makkes, and as a end, a finishing of all these Makkes, or the Eibishter gebracht Gresnedish. Now he brought the worst, the biggest punishment, the Nes von Kriyas Yamsuf, but durch dem Nisher ben Matecha, the miracle of Kriyas Yamsuf, that not even one left alive. So it comes out what happened here is all in continuation to before. Und der Fall kann Rasha nicht bringen die Girse vom Sich des Sofrim, als nur Bishas Muhammad ab dem Hargen und Afilish Tev Shebakum. Therefore, Rasha can bring the Girse from Sich des Sofrim, that when is this idea that the best go even you have to kill is only during war, and that he learns out from here, you can't learn it from here. Hier ist der Posek meint nicht zu sagen, dass die Redif von Muhammad von den Mitzrayim ist gewähnt die Sibbe von Seirumkum beim Yamsuf. Because the way the Posek is, they didn't die because of what they're doing now. So you can't say from what they were doing now, and even the good ones gave their animals for what happened now, from that we learn now that the best mitzvah you have to kill at time of war. So why can't we learn out? Because here they weren't killed because of the war. As we said, because of this war itself, they wouldn't have been killed because it was not really Pare's fault. But they were killed as a hemshech to everything that they did before. So it's not because of the war. So Rasha can't say from here we learn now that Bishas Muhammad Tev Sheba Mitzrayim Harei. Now like them is moving for was Rasha Muzar bringing Mekano Reb Shimon Neimer Hagam Pirish Rasha Nit can say for Allah. This explains why Rasha has to bring what Reb Shimon said, even though the Chure Dukasha we asked before, what's in the gate to the Pshat and the Posik? That Reb Shimon learned out from here what people should do otherwise, other places. Because from them was Rasha sagt that die was eine gewähnt Yored Dvar Hashem und gegeben sie Behemoth to Parei. Since Rasha says that those that were Yored Dvar Hashem, they gave their animals to Parei, he's moving as they seine gewähnt by Kriyas Yamsuf. They gave it, they came along to Kriyas Yamsuf. It was their animals, and they came to Kriyas Yamsuf. And the Rebbe brings one Bekemis at the bottom of 42. Uwe Meila, as Eich seine bestrop geworden zusammen mit den anderen Mitzrim. That therefore, when all the Mitzrim died, and these people who saved their animals before because they were Yored Dvar Hashem also came along, they also died. So if that's what happened, we have to understand. Wie kommt es, was der Yored Dvar Hashem ist umgekommen bei Kriyas Yamsuf, zugleich mit die, was einen nicht gewähnt Yored Dvar Hashem. How is it possible that these people who were afraid of Hashem's words were punished and died together equally to all the other ones who were not Yored Dvar Hashem? The Posik Zot, the Posik says not one was left over, so they also died. Now, what was their problem? It's only because they gave their behemoths. Because we just finished saying that this punishment here was not because of this war that they were chasing. So why did this good guys, so to speak, die? Because they gave their behemoths. And Rebbe explains it. Had we said, not like we said before, but had we said that the reason they punished them here and they died was because of this chasing the Eden to war, we'd understand why even the Yored Dvar Hashem deserves this punishment. Rasha wouldn't even have to tell us. We'd understand ourselves. So why? Because they also chased. Because if they're punished and killed because they chased the Eden, and the Yored Dvar Hashem also chased the Eden, so they died, no question. Rasha doesn't have to say anything. But as neither noch Jogn is given the Sibbe. But as we said before, the reason they died is not because they chased the Yidden, because this is not really their fault. It's the Eibishter made it. But it was because what was happening before. Now we don't understand. So why will these also punish? The Yore Dvar Hashem were not the ones that worked before to make the Eden suffer, because they were Yore Dvar Hashem. They were afraid of Hashem. So they didn't make them suffer. So Pare here and the rest of the guys, Mitzrayim, because of what they did before all these years, they killed him. But the Yore Dvar Hashem doesn't seem that they did it. They were Yore Dvar Hashem. But why would they die when they did not do the same thing that the people who died, other people who died, who deserved to die, they didn't deserve that. Befrat, and the Bechomesh hat schon gelernt in der Parsha von Zdein V'Ameira, especially when the child was learning this, and as we said before, remembers everything he learned before. So he learned the Parsha about Zdein and Ameira. As dort wollten sich gefunden blaze 9 or 10 tzaddikim. The story with Avram speaking to the Eibishter, and he said, if Eibishter said, if I find 10 tzaddikim or maybe even 9, and counting the Eibishter as the 10th, wollten sie nicht nur allein geraten wird geworden. So not only these 10 people or 9 people themselves would have been saved, nor their schus wollt megen gewinnen auf alle Einwohner von seiner Stadt. Their schus would have protected all the people from the city. Und da ist gewinn Punkt der Hepe, hier ist das opposite. Nicht haben sie von dem Zug für Jahre Dvar Hashem nicht megen gewinnen zu raten, wenn die andere mit Zerayim von Kloya. Here, since the Yore Dvar Hashem came along with them, we're here. And they were good people. They didn't make the Eden suffer before. And nevertheless, not only did they not protect the others like by Zdeim, nor they themselves were not saved. So the question is, why did they die? If they did not do the things that caused the Eibishter to kill this Mitzrayim by Kriyas Yamsuf. So why did they die? The fire bringt Rashi the Maimah from the Shimon, Mekan, Kosher Shimon Tzayim Arei, Tev Shimon Nechoshem. That's why Rashi brings what Reb Shimon said, that from here we see that the best of the Mitzrayim kill, the best of the snakes bashes brain. They to Masber to explain like this. At der Einish from the Yore is not given to leave them allein, but Sarah gegeben, Zayim Behemoth Sopare. They tell us that the reason why these people who were afraid of Hashem got killed, died here, is not just because they gave their animals. It's not for the war, we said, because even the Pare didn't, and the others didn't die because of the war, of this war that they were chasing the Eden. It's something before. So we thought before that the reason they died seems, if you learn Porship Shad, is because they gave their animals. So is that as bad as what the other Mitzrayim did? So that's what Rashi is telling us. That's not like that. They didn't die just because they gave their animals. But their Harber Einish for Yorei, this strict, the big punishment that even the one that was afraid of Hashem got is Aichocha. The fact that they died proves, as ein Geben the Behemoth is at Itzof and Zaysin to Eden. That the reason he gave it, not just because he just, okay, he'll give it. It came as a result of their hatred to the Eden. In welchen is gleich mit the andere Mitzrayim, which was equal to the other Egyptians. But die giftige Gesinne, this venom, hatred that they had, bedugma von Anochesh, like a snake, was that bewegen alle Mitzrayim zu peinigen die Eden, as sehr stark und as sehr viel Jahren, that caused the other Egyptians to make the Eden suffer so strongly and so many years, und was der Fahr ist, auf sie alle nigse geworden, eich auf dem Jahre, der Einisch von der Regel nicht übermecha. That's why they got this punishment. In other words, the other ones got killed because they made the Eden work. In truth, these people maybe did not make the people work. The sin that they had were just the same. That's the proof. Sometimes you don't need a side proof. The proof is from the question itself. The question is, why did they die similar to them when they didn't participate in the same thing? The answer is, that Gufa must tell you that they did participate. Now, it doesn't mean that they dafke made the Eden work, because the Pashtas, if they're Yored Dvar Hashem, they probably didn't make the Eden work. But the sinner they had the same. There must be that sinner. So when they all died, all those who had the sin, so they made the Eden work because of the sinner, but these guys at least had the sinner, and that's why they died equally. Now, when you know that, now we'll understand why Shimon says the Loshem Mikan. From here we know it, that the best mitzvah you should kill. Bis dem Einish from Kriyas Yamsuf is noch nicht talking Klora Bavais, because till this punishment of Kriyas Yamsuf, we don't have a clear proof. As Eibam Yores Var Hashem is given the sin of Rishas Eden, Nazah Grace Mos, that this hatred and the riches of even the Yore Var Hashem to Eden was so great, as Imzol Kuman the father Eine Shareg to gleich mit allem Mitzrayim, that he should be killed together with Mitzrayim. In other words, you might think that maybe even from before from seeing that these people, that there were, when we don't look here, when we see, can we prove that all the Egyptians had the same sinner? We can't say that. Maybe some didn't, especially the Yored Dvar Hashem. Maybe they didn't. It's only when we get to here, when we see that even the Yored Dvar Hashem died together with the rest. Now we know that the best Mitzri is bad. The best Mitzri in Mitzrayim at those days was bad, which means this is the reason why Rasha brings, the kasha was, why does it bring Reb Shimon Bechlal? Because he's answering the question. Why did they die? So look at what Reb Shimon says. Here, we see here, and when he says he see here, the Rebbe will explain soon, it means not Lagaba another case. He's saying, from here we see the best Mitzri at that time was bad. From here we see that even the Yored Dvar Hashem had such a great sin, that the Horaya, they died. And that's what it means, that even the best deserves to die, as we see here. Those was the Makis, those were by the Makis, the fact that by the Makis, besides Dever and Borat, Gefinim Minit, the Yored is Ozain Uzgitelt from the andere Mitzrayim. We don't find that the Yored Dvar Hashem was different than the rest of Mitzrayim. Is doch nicht kein Reihe, nicht, as is von Sehen nicht abgestanden in sein Sinnerisches Eden. Still no proof that the Yored Dvar Hashem was the same, was not less in their hatred than the rest of the people. Weil wie bald jene Makkes seine nicht gewähnt der größte, fuller ähnlich von Miese. Since the other Makkes was not the biggest one, they didn't cause death. Fordert sich nicht der größte full mos Risches von Mitzrayim, doesn't need to, maybe she should punish, you don't need the complete Rishes. In other words, maybe, since it doesn't say, let's go explain a little more. The Chura, you could say, since it doesn't say anywhere that the Yored Dvar Hashem was punished less than the rest, like Dam and Svardeya and Kinim and all, whatever. By most, besides Makkes Dever and Borod, it doesn't say Bechlal that the Makkeh was different by the regular Mitzri and the Yored Dvar Hashem. So the Chura from there also you could think. So obviously they had the same hatred because they also got the Makkeh. So Dever says from them it's not that high yet. The fact that they got those Makkahs, since the Makkahs were not death, maybe for the punishment, the problem of these Makkahs is enough the Rishas that they had. Maybe the Yored Hashem had less Rishas. We hate the Eden less. But even a little bit of hatred is enough to get those Makkahs. Can kommen als eine a kleinere Mossine Rishas. Those Makkahs could come even if it's a smaller level of hatred and Rishas. But those that they had the Yored Dvar Hashem, the Yored Dvar Hashem maybe had it. And the fire is that der Meinish from the Makkahs. That's why he also deserved the punishment of the other Makkahs. From the other Makkahs, we don't know that these guys were also as bad in their Rishas and their hatred like the others. Now, viele Makkahs Becheres, was a shame given even Makkahs Becheres, which was death. So the Chura here, we don't find that the Yored Dvar Hashem did not suffer. So here it also shows that the Yored Dvar Hashem was as bad in their hatred like the rest. It's no Raya. Rasha said before, it says in Posik that even the prayer of the maids, of the slaves, other slaves in Mitzrayim, not Yidden, also suffered from Makkahs Becheres. Question is why? So one of the reasons that the Mitzrayim made the Yidden work, they were themselves in jail. Why would they die? So Rasha says, why even the children of the Shvachas died? Because they were also happy about it. And they were also Meshabed Eden. The say says, this punishment of Misa, since it's not for every person, nor if a kleine tail from the Mishpacha, only for a small amount of the family, the B'cher, if the B'cher is, you need to ask for the full sterishus from the Mitzrayim. Doesn't have to come. This type of Misa, you don't have to be the full-fledged hatred in order to deserve such a punishment. The far, the Bnei Ashvachas given Bechlal the Makkah. For sure, the Bnei Ashvachas who were happy with the Eden Tzoras and also helped in the Shibud, they definitely were not the same level as the regular Mitzrayim. And nevertheless, they also died. Assuming that for the Makkahs Becheres, you don't need the worst level of Rishas in order to get it. So therefore, from the other Makkahs, we have no raya that the Yored Dvar Hashem hated the Yidden as much as the other Mitzrayim. Maybe they hated them less, and nevertheless they got the Makkahs. But here, with the Vernichtung for the Mitzrayim, when the Mitzrayim were punished and they died, everyone died, not one was left. Is that that shows that even the Yored Dvar Hashem, which we call the kosher Sheba Mitzrayim of that generation at that time, is given Beshove Mamish mit alle andere Mitzrayim in sein vollster Sinne Brische Sieden. Und der Vater ist Eich in dem Einisch von Hareg. And that shows the fact that they all died, shows that they were equal to the rest, and the male they also deserve to die. So it comes out from here that what the Rashi brings, Reb Shimon said, that Teif Sheba Mitzrayim Hareg is referring not to all generations. He's talking about there in Mitzrayim at that time by Kriyas Yamsuf. And Rashi brings it to answer the Shaila. The Shaila is, why did they deserve to die if they were not as bad as the others? And the answer is they were as bad. So Shimon says, yes, these good guys, these good guys were very bad, equal to them. So even they Hareg, they also had to get killed. But them is verstandig for what's kosher Sheba Mitzrayim Hareg. That's why Rashi, and now we understand why Rashi brings these words. Kosher, the best of the Mitzrayim, we shall kill. Rashi brings this, they to verantworten die Schwierigkeit in dem Posik. Rashi brings it to answer the kasha in this Posik. So if Rashi is answering the kasha in this Posik, versteht man bepashtes, so that we understand, as Kosher Sheba Mitzrayim Hareg, meint die Mitzrayim von jenem Dor. When he brings the Shimon as pshat in our posik, and we know the Klal Rashi doesn't bring halachas for other cases when it's not gay to pshat, must be what Rashi brings is pshat here. So when Rashi brings that Shimon said kosher mitzayim hareg means the best mitzri of that generation of the posik. That's talking about the posik. As jene mitzri, I feel that the kosher from they kommt der Einisch von hareg. That in those mitzriim, even the kosher, the good ones, also deserve the punishment of hareg, that they should die. Umitama now. And for the reason that we said before, because they also hated the Yidden as much as everybody else. And we see that from here. So Rashi brings it as talking about the Mitzrayim of that generation. And when the Mitzrayim from andere data, Saik Sheim, Saik Shoim, Ret Rashi Bechlam, and the Mitzrayim of other generations, whether good or bad, Rashi is not even talking about it. And that's self-understood. Any person that also Rashi, the way the Rebbe learns that only negated this pasuk, so whatever Rashi says is negated to this pasuk. So when Rashi says Kosher Sheba Mitzrayim Hareg is not talking about other Mitzrayim in generations later. That every best mitzri you have to kill, even the best mitzri. He's talking about this posik, and this posik is about mitzrayim here. And here we have the kosher Sheba Mitzrayim, the good ones, those that were Yored Dvar Hashem, and they also got killed. Hareg, because they also deserve to die. That's what he's saying. Fragt aber der Ben Chomesh, and the child who's learning it, asks from the lotion, from the words of Rashi. Mikan hoyer Reb Shimon Eimer. From here, Reb Shimon said, "Mashma der Inyan is ich negei for anders." For the Shpetedika data is mashma that he's not only explaining pshat in what happened here, pshat and pos in this pos. He's only using it mikan from here. He said it for something else, for something later, for other generations. The ma'inaf gemin for the andere data is those was the kosher Sheba Mitzrayim in Yenem Doris Hareg. What's negayet later generations that they in that time, that generation, the best mitzri was also bad and deserves to die. But he said it. You should take this as a lesson, mikan, from here to something else. If I bring Rashi dem hemshech von Reb Shimon Maimer, that's what Rashi brings the hemshech of what Reb Shimon said, teivshim, the choshim, that says this meichi. That the best of the snake bashes brain in. But the meat daiter on, this is trying to show, I did not kamina ladeiris, is not the rinya from kosher Sheba Mitzrayim Hareg guf. It's not the words that he said, the best mitzri you have to kill. That's not for the later generations. No, he didn't say that. Nor if viful dead in your lentuns benegay them klal. From here we know concerning what comes to a snake. And so Rashi is trying to tell us why the Reb Shimon says in such a loshen mikan, because there is something that we can learn out from here, Lagabe, how much you have to take care of the snake, you have to kill the snake and break his head, his brain. That from there we learn out. The Eid Lahesif, and another thing the Rebbe says we could add, Erfuhren, wir kann weiß man euch, als Eibes wird sein, einer, was sein Beziehung lerot zu Iden, wird sein Azab, was man wird ihm kennen, anrufen Nochash, is muhzik in them. Learn out from here, Takazeh. Not that every mitzvah has to shalom, say every stam a good mitzvah you have to kill, but he's trying to tell us, if there will be others later on, similar to the way the people were in the time of the story of Kriyas Yamsuf, if another mitzvah, or another guy, his connection to Eden, will be in such a way like a snake. What's a snake? A snake that is muhzik in them. A snake is muhzik means we have the chazaka. We know he is dangerous. He is out to kill you. Al derech gefintel mal yus ashim shemeton gebruf nochash. All nochash means that Nochash is a snake, but it's used when you say somebody who has a chazokeh to a certain thing. We find good also. Shimshon was called a Nochash. Why? Because he was very strong in his inyanim and the good things. And then you have Nochash, the snake, that says bad. So Rab Shimon is telling us, if you'll have other times, generations, similar to this generation, where you have people who have a chazokeh like a snake, that they're going to harm you, gate of them, their klal, tev sheben nechoshim chulu, the klal, the best nochash you should kill. And that we learn out from the story here. So Rashi, when he says, tev sheben kosher shemitzrayim arei, goes on those generations, and not just generation, the time of Kriyas Yamsu. From there we learn out, for a snake, and also for people who are like a snake, then you'll have to do the same thing as the Eibusha did here, that the best mitzvah the Eibusha killed. Well, the Hoyer, that says just to note, as in Rashes, und seine Talmidim Zeit, in Rashes, and his Talmidim's time, is given a Sach was einen given, so Eden bedugmas Nochash. A lot of going with Eden like a Nochash. The Mizette Seichen, the Kinnes geschrieben von Rasha with Talmidim, we see the Kinnes that we say even on Tisha B'Av, other Kinnes, Rasha wrote and the Talmidim wrote, describing the hatred of the Goyim and how they made the Eden suffer. So Rashi wrote it because people in his generation have to know that sometimes it could be some similar situation that you have to do like the Eibusha did to the Mitzrayim by Kriyas Yamsu to the good ones. You have to do it here too, and you can't trust them because they're like a Nochash. This will also answer what's the big chidush that the best of the snakes you should bash his brain out. Rabbi asked, it's a posik. It says who yishuv charesh, that he, meaning the person, the human being, will break his head, hit him in his head. So the Rebbe says like this: from the posik who yishuv charesh vata the she'ener. Okay, from this posik that he will harm you in your head and you will bite him in his ankle, in his heel. Veisman nor as yishuv charesh is verbunden is abavorin shata to shuv haferena. Okay, that we know it's a connection that if he wants to bite you, then you break his head. To shmeten the mreish for nochosh, dan when there is b'matzeh vata the shvaneke. You should break completely. I don't know the English word for it actually. Only when he is trying to bother you, then you have to do it. If them is Reb Shimon Mechadesh, Reb Shimon comes and says, "Punkt wie mir gefindt, as afilo dikshen and Shimon Mitzrayim is harek, just like we find by the Mitzrayim, that the best Mitzri you should kill. So Reb Zeya giftig is in Eden because the same good ones, so to speak, had the greatest hatred to Eden with the greatest venom. On not because they came to fight with Eden. Canal, as we explained before, what happened here is not because they came to fight. Why did Ayored Bar Hashem die? Because they hated the Eden the whole time. So to by a snake. But the Eibusha made a decree that there will be a hatred between the people and the Nochash. Darfon it warten, bis the Nochash fällt on, if you mention, up to wait till Nochash will attack a person. Und damals Yishuv Charesh, then you should smash his head. As soon as you see a snake, it's to smash his brain. Because even the good Nochash, good snake, is a zevi akosha shemitzrayim from their parsha fiyanav. Every good snake is similar to the good Mitzri in the generation of Kriyas Yamsu. He is dain sakonis dikasena. He is your enemy with danger the whole time. But the Eibusha says he'll hate you. The Eibusha made a decree. So a snake, you don't have to wait; he should attack you. But that we don't know from the pasuk, and that we know from here. From that we know what's doing by a snake. So a lot of times we have something that teaches something someplace else. So when we get to that someplace else, and we try to compare number one to number two. Then after we know number two is like number one, it goes backwards. Now we learn certain details from number two to number one. Here also. And the fact that Rashi brings the end, that by the snake also you should bash his brain out. Now it makes it clearer to understand what Rashi meant in the first part, that the good Mitzri you have to kill. It only means the generation of Mitzrayim, was mit sehr Sinne zu iten sein, sie gewähnen der Dugme zu der Sinne von Anochish zu Menschen, that they were that time similar to a snake, even nowadays. By Rashi bringing the snake, that's another point. Is not only to bring that we should learn out from here what to do by a snake. Again, there'll be a question. If it's just teaching us, we learn out that by a snake you always have to kill the snake. Again, it's not pshat in this pasuk. The truth is, when Rashi brings that, it strengthens the pshat in the pasuk. That since we compare the snake to the kosher Sheba Mitzrayim, and by a snake we know that the reason you have to kill him and smash his head in is because of his gift, because of his venom. And that's what we learn out from the Kosher Shem Mitzrayim. Oh, from that we understand that we're talking in a case where the best goy has the same venom. And where was that? Only in the time of Mitzrayim. Or if ever another generation will be the same thing, that even the good guys have the venom. So now we see the whole Tash from all sides. Was ist Tage die Sibbe, was Punkt Demut ist given as a grace as a Usnam Dor? Why Take, what the Rebbe says? What's the reason why it was such a special, extra special generation in a bad way, of that generation, that they hated the Eden so much? If them is Rashi Medayek are up to bring them Loshen from Mechilte, that's why Rashi is Medayek, and he quotes the Loshen of Mechilte, Tev, Shem Mechoshim, Retzeitz Es Meichei. Bash his brain in. And the Kasha we asked in the beginning, why is brain? Rashi should have used the word Reish, because it says Yishafen Reish. So Rashi brings Meichei to explain the first part, that the best Mitzri at that time also had the same venom, which Rashi, and which means that when Rashi quotes Reb Shimon, that from here we learn now, Tev Akosha Mitzrayim Hareg means only the Mitzrayim at that generation. How do we know that more? Is by Rashi bringing here the word Meichei. Rashi, by bringing Meichei, by bringing something to teach us by a snake, but from that we understand the pshat in the case of Mitzrayim. And this will answer why they had such hatred, and we'll explain that when the Shimon says, and Rashi quotes of Shimon, that the best Mitzri you have to kill means of that generation. How is it? Kishem by Nochish is a sibit to the Gzeira by Iva Oshes. Is given dos as a Nochish Yoram. Look at the snake. Why did Abish to make that there should be a hatred between a human being and a snake? Because of what the snake did. When the snake with the Itzadas. How did the snake do it? Starts so a Nochish Yoram. Meichei. He was sly. The snake was sly. But als they saw their phone, he was sly in his brain. As a result, is gekommen der Chet Itzadas. Came the Chet Itzadas. As they are the Sinne von dem Mitzrayim, he had in ihr besondere Sibbe. So the same thing by the Mitzrayim, the Sinne that they had a reason. Und der Fall ist Asa unvergleichbare Sinne, and such a unprecedented hatred. How did it start? In dem was Pare had gesagt, Hovan is Chachman. Pare started, he said, let's go find Chochme against the Eden. Alle Mitzrayim sollen sein is Chachma. All the Mitzrayim should become smart. And what does it mean, Orum? Like by the snake was Orum. Orum is sly. But those are gefiert so kushe hashibut meaning from the Israel. That made the shibut so hard and the suffering of the Eden. Und das is Rashi Merames in the word Meiche, you need Rashi. That's what Rashi says, that by the snake, you have to break his brain. The Nochash darf man umbringen zu Leib sein Meach. Why do you have to destroy the Nochash, the snake? Because of his brain. A Nochash Ayorim, it all started because of the brain of the Nochash. He was sly. But so their fears of Evosh, that brought to the hatred. That's why the fact that the best Mitzri you have to kill in the time of Mitzrayim then is because also of their brain, of their Chochmeh. Their Hovan is Chachmalei, when they said, let's make ourselves smart against the Eden. So their fear, it's Kesh Shibut in Mitzrayim, which brought to the hardship of the Shibut and the suffering of Mitzrayim. So now we even understand that. But now we have a Kosher and the general Pshat. Wann ist der Reihe, das, was man geharget, dem Kosher Shem Mitzrayim, is given to jeden Sinne und Rishes. How do we know that everyone, all the Mitzrayim died, that even the ones that were Yored Var Hashem died? Is because, as we said, they had the same unbelievable hatred and Rishes to Eden. After das given, the Agzeire von Eberschen Onatam Gole. Maybe the Eberschen had his reason. How do you know that this is the reason? The Eberschen made Agzeire. A lot of times the Eberschen does things that we don't understand. How do we know we're making it a whole cheshbon that they died because of that, etc., etc.? How do we know that? Maybe there's no real reason, but we know it's no Golic reason. Maybe she had his reasons. I bring Rashi up the name from Bala Memre Reb Shimon. That's what Rashi brings, the one who said this, Reb Shimon. While Reb Shimon is there, was his daughter's time at the crow, and the gate technology Tosi. Reb Shimon is known to be, he's the one that darshans, psukim, and according to the reason. Even halachas, he says, when the Torah gives a reason, so he says the reason is when we keep the halacha, if there's a case where that reason doesn't apply, the halacha doesn't apply. Others don't agree. Even the Torah gives a reason, we don't darshan it as the main thing of the din. But Reb Shimon does. So here also, Reb Shimon, he says, yeah, we have to look into the tam. And therefore, if this is a tam that makes sense, this is the tam why they were died. And from then, and that we see that in the case, other cases like this, like by the Nochash, or in the case where there are Yidden, Goyim, other case, other data that do the same thing, you have to do the same. But what Rashi is doing, not trying to make something. Other case, it's only Geya to teach us what the pshat in this pasuk. The dem is moving for was in die alle the Kuchen bescheiches the Maimed von der Bschimmen with their Mond, hat man sich nicht gekannt, but nutzen wir das Wort. The Kasha the Rebbe asked in the beginning, if we're going to explain Rashi very simple, why couldn't the Daily Yisrael answer this in all the dialogues they had with the Goyim? So they now will understand it. The Bir Omer is poshet behechlet. This Bir, the Rebbe says, is very simple. The Rebbe is simple. Rashi doesn't have to say it. It's obvious. It is aber massive nor in Pirish Rashi. You could only say Pshat in Rashi. While number one, Rashi is losing some Mefarish and nor Pshuta Shel Mikra. Nor the Posik Gebelch stellt sich. Rashi only explains Pshuta Shel Mikra and the Posik that he's explaining. The Faris in Pirish Rashi, the Taich v'Kosher Sheba Mitzrayim, the Mitzrayim wegen welches redt sich in dem Posik. So when Rashi says the Kosher Sheba Mitzrayim Areig, since Rashi is only dealing with this Posik, so it's obvious that the word Mitzrayim here means the Mitzrayim of that Posik, the Mitzrayim of that time. And that's one thing. Number two, in Pirish Rashi kommt Tev Shem Nechoshem Letzeit Esmeich als Hemsech Shekosher Sheba Mitzrayim Areig. How do we understand Rashi? One of the ways that Rashi is talking about the Mitzrayim of that generation. So we said before, because Rashi continues that by the snake, the same thing, and that teaches us to understand that we're talking about the Mitzrayim here who had this great venom like the snakes. But the fire by Teich Shib Nechoshem abgelehnt bekan. That's why with the gate and Nechoshem, how much you have to do it. Is learn out from here. And that proved, as we said before, that when Rashi says the best Mitzri you should kill, means the Mitzrayim and the Goyim of that generation. But that's only Rashi. When you bring Reb Shimon the way to the Sefer or other Madrashim, who the Nusach is in Asig and Stomi, there is not talking about the Mitzrayim of that generation. It's Tam. Tony Reb Shimon Michoy said, the best Goy you should kill. The best of snakes you shall bash his brain in. The best woman does magic. So when you learn there, you can't explain that it's talking about the Mitzrayim and the Goyim of that generation. But it doesn't talk about a generation, certain generation. It doesn't talk about a special type of Goyim, Mitzrayim. So Rashi, it's clear it's talking about the Mitzrayim then, for two reasons. Number one, because Rashi is only explaining this passage. So if it's on this passage, we're talking about these Mitzrayim. And number two, Rashi, the hemsha to that, says by the Nechoshem what you should do, as we said before. But when it says Tamim Mesichta Sefer, we can't say that. Another thing why you can't say it in Mesichta Sefer. Here there's, as we said just now, there's a third case. The best woman does Kishev. But that Keshayches Nitzatev Shabako has no connection to the best of the Goyim. Darf man sagen, that jede eine von die drei Bobbits ist a besondere Inje für sich. So Mesichta Sofrim, since the third one, which is the Ksheira Shebenoshim is Kshofim, has nothing to do to the ones before. Oh, so obviously there's three statements. Each one is an independent statement. Haksheira Shebenoshim v'chul is ahiro in Shaychas mit dem Tebe V'noshim. When it says the best woman could be K'madak Kshofim is a hero concerning women. What's the nature of women? Tev Shebenoshim is when the Tebe V'noshim. The best of the snakes is concerning what's the nature of the snakes. Beide nicht verbunden mit einem bestimmten Dor. Both have nothing to do with a specific time, specific generation. For alle Zeiten in Shayches mit der Tebe von Agoy. So when it says Mesichta Sofer, and Shimon says that the best Goy you should kill, is also telling us the nature of a Goy, nothing to do with a special generation. So the B'chil Paris or the others who had the dialogues with the Goyim could not answer this pshat. We're just answering it in Rashi. But there you need a different answer. And therefore, that's why they had a hard time trying to find the answer that will be acceptable by them. So as much as we said this pshat is poshut, very simple, we understand also the pshat is why they couldn't answer it, because only poshut in Rashi, not otherwise. Then the Rebbe continues. Even though Rashi is pshat, Rashi is not a sefer of halachas, but we could learn out from Rashi things which have to do with halacha. So he says, Eliezer says concerning a wolf or a snake, he says like this: anybody who kills him first is zeich. In other words, as soon as you see a snake, you got to kill him. Tanakama there says that when the ox kills a person, you got to kill the ox, but you got to have a bezdin. Mamish, as if you take a person to trial, capital trial, same thing with an ox. But it comes to a wolf or a snake, he says, no, you don't need the bezin of 23 like by a person. Tanakama says you do by a snake also, and Rabbi Lezer says you're not. When the dem is do a plukta zwischen Rabbi Yechon and the Shlokish. In Pshat, in Rabbi Lezer, that you don't need a bezin to kill a snake, there's a machlokes with Rabbi Yechon and Shlokish. Shlokish haltet, das ist gesagt geworden, nur wenn der Nochish hat getäter Menschen. The Shlokish says, when does Rabbi Lezer say you don't need a bezin, but you could kill him, the snake yourself, is when the snake killed a person. But then will come to me, says, so he deserves to die. So then he says, darfen nicht darfen. Them, come person, you don't need the bezin. Die es fordert sich bei Asher, by an ox who killed and deserves to die, you need the bezin, by a snake you don't. Eba with the Nochish hat kemensch, nicht mehr misgewinnt, torn mit dem Nochish and hargenen. If you didn't kill anybody, you can't kill the snake. Aber Rabbi Yechanan Rabbi Yechanan says, Alpha Pishalei Miso Zokman Eichel Akedem Nahorgam Zocha, but Einlem Tarpus. Rabbi Yechanan says what he meant was, even if you didn't kill anybody, a snake is wild and a snake is dangerous. And therefore, if you see a snake, you kill him no matter what. Like the Rasha Taich the Pshuto Shel Mikra. As Tev Sheb in the Choshen Vet Aruz Gelen from Kosher Sheb in Tzayim Hareig. But based on what we said before, that Rasha explains the Pshat, that when we say the best snake you should kill is learned out Mikan from the case of Kosher Sheb in Tzayim Hareig, the best mitzvah you should kill. Und Divre Rasha ala Teire darfen doch geteicht werden l'chele reish kipshutem. And Rasha, first you got to teach Rasha in simple Pshat. So if you learn like that, darf oiskumen, this will come out in halacha. Even though Rasha is not intending to say halacha, but it's there. Number one, I'm a darfen hom kemish for the best to hargen them nochish. First of all, you paskin like Rabbi Eliezer, not like the Tanakama. You don't need a judgment. You don't need a trial for the nochash. If we compare the nochash to the mitzrim, and we're talking about the mitzrim of that generation, the Eibusha didn't judge each mitzri separately. So we see that you don't have to judge him. But demult is the seder. If you have to judge, the seder would have been the shofta eda b'tzilo eda. The Torah says you got to judge and you got to save. You got to find the schus. And those are the gehargit geworden. Ech divas yore is Hashem biz ad echad. And hereby we see Mitzrayim b'kriyas samsev. Everyone killed, even the good guys. Yore is Hashem got killed with other judgments. So number one, we see that Allah is like in Pshat. According to Pshat, Allah is like Rabbi not like the Hanakam. You don't need the bezin. Nor the gzeiras kloyat arum genommen alle Mitzrayim ubebas begeder midachas. The gzeira of killing the Mitzrayim was by everybody equal. So the good ones also without the bezin. And number two, in the Eliezer Gufa, we see Amedar Hargen and Anochash Afilu Kishalayim. Like the Shlokish says, no, like Rabbi Yechanan says, no, like Rabbi Yechanan says that you have to kill him no matter what. For Mafila Tev Sheben Nechoshim Retzaitis Meicha here, it says even the good Nochash. What does the good Nochash mean? If he's biting you, then obviously he's not a good Nochash. It means he's not biting you. Al derechli bakosha shem Mitzrayim Hareig, when we say we're comparing the Nochash, a good Nochash to the good Mitzri, was is given nicht zu lieb sein Milchama mit Eden, when we said that's some sin is Eden. When we say that the good guys got killed by Kriyas Yamsuf, it's not because of the attacking the Eden, because of their sin, as we said. And that is there by a Nochash also. So a Nochash you could kill just for his sin without even attacking you. And the third thing we see, was alt is nor b'shaychas to a Nochash. It's only, according to this Rashi, it's only by a snake. But if him is that the Gzeira ve'eva osh is bein chobein, then the Eibishter made the decree that he hates you. So the snake, we know, hates the person. Schenke by andere balachayim kemazogna yeshlam tarbus. By other animals from Rashi we don't see. Maybe they are able to be tamed, etc., etc. So we see three things in halacha. The way the halacha will come out according to Pshuta Shel Mikra. The Rof and then Vayada Eden Zayin Aveda Prot is the lesson that we take for every Yid in his personal service Aveda Hashem. Chazal zogn as Nochash the Yitzhara. The Chazal say to tell us in Zayir it says Nochash represents the Yitzhara. Namol is the Afruma Yitzhara. Sometimes you have a religious Yitzhara. A good nochash, so to speak. A tainet, what's a good nochash? What is the yitzhar? One could be a good yitzhar. How could the yitzhar be good? Yeah, he could say, as I will mach shalom mit the yitzhar, he wants to make peace with the yitzhar. Number one, let's make a compromise. Ervet losen the miden lernen teira v'chulu bisman teira v'chulu. Because I won't bother you when you learn teira. Learn teira. I'm going to let you do it. Und the yitzhar, hey, yitzhar soll ihm losen sich noch geben ein bisschen seine teives. And he tells the yitzhar, you know what? I'll let the yidden learn teira at certain time when you should learn, and other times you let me get the guy involved in taivis. When you eat, etc. That's my business. Let's make it short. So he's a good Yetzer Hara. He's trying to give in a little bit to the Yetzer Tov. So the Rav Shimon says, Tev Shem and the Choshim, the best snake, you have to bash his brain in. You're not allowed to make peace with the Yetzer Hara, but that is a nochosh, because the Yetzer Hara is a nochosh. What does it mean? Nohot dir find. No matter how he disguises himself, He hates you. And those was it is great. The noch zu geben in einige Sachen. The fact that he's trying to give in certain things. That's mitach bulas hayetzer. It's part of his tricks of the Yitzhara. Like the Gemara says, that the Yitzhara has a plan. He says in the beginning, he gives in, but he gets you used to certain things, and then eventually he'll get you to the worst. So this is only a plan. So he has his meyach. He's using his brain to catch you in. So he looks like a good Yitzhara. He's trying to make peace, but you don't believe it. And the far is the Eitzah. So what's the advice? Bash his brain in. To schmettern sein Meach, bash his brain, the armumius v'tachbulus v'yitzar, the slyness and the trickness of the trying that he's trying to trick you. Noch I need them another Indian. So you do the dig and then vashteit yigir kapech asechel. We know there's a dig. The pasuk says you shall eat from the toil of your hands. What do you mean toil of your hands? So the Rabbi says in many different sichas that means ad yigia from Naiden and iske apanosa dav zayin blaze mikapecha. When you work hard in panosa, making a living, you have to do it, but it has to be only with your hands. With your keach of action, of a zayin kop, your head, the reishcha, the seichel shebemeir, your brain involvement in your brain. That allemaal zayin full mit Torah, always be full Torah. No, you got to do what you got to do, and you got to know what you're doing. Obviously, it doesn't mean you got to do stupid things. You got to, but you have to. In what's lick the cup, what's your head involved, always has to be in Torah. And das meint that means bash his brain in. That to brechen the meach from the Yitzhara. You have to break the brain of the Yitzhara, which is the Nachash. Kedei der meach soll sein in ganz nibrigem zu Torah Kedusha, so the brain should be given completely to Torah Kedusha. Und durch dem, was sieht in seinem Mekayim Eros Razal, Teivshem und Choshem Letzeitzas Meichei. The Yidden keep what the Chazal say, the best of the snakes bash his brain in, which means the Yitzhara. Don't give in to the Yitzhara at all. In Meshach Zman HaGolus, if you do it during the time of Golus, in the Zeicha to the Kima Yud, from Gam Evav Yashmi Itei, we will reach the fulfillment of the promise of the Eibush that even your enemy will make peace with you. And who's that enemy? The Chazal's Taichen, Seha Nochash. The Chazal say this in the Shalmit, this goes on the snake. As Eich the Nochash, when even the snake will be changed over, transformed, this as Yashli Mitel make Shalom with you. And a real Shalom, not the Shalom that he's trying to make compromises. He will give in, and he will give in completely. It will be only Tevin Kedusha.